Hello, everyone. Welcome for another talk. Tonight, we are very happy because we have a guest speaker, Marcelo Neto, from Miami, from the Conscious Living Spiritist Group. So, I will start with a prayer and a small reading. And I would like to invite everyone so we can connect our thoughts and asking God for inspiration, that we may be attuned with the good spirits during this talk, and that all that Marcelo is going to bring us may help us on our daily lives and especially help us to progress as the immortal spirits that we are. So, dear Lord, we thank you for another day, for another opportunity, and we ask permission to begin tonight's talk. Thank you, and so be it. So, to open our meeting, I'm going to do the reading of the message from our daily bread, number 4. Before serving, just as the Son of Man has come not to be served, but to serve. Jesus, Matthew 20:28. In the company of the spirit of service, we will always be well watched over. All of creation reaffirms this truth with absolute clarity. From the lowest realms to the highest, all things serve in their own time. With its divisions in specialized tasks, the law of labor is present in the humblest elements of diverse sectors of nature. For instance, this tree will cure illnesses, while that one will produce fruit. There are stones that contribute to the construction of homes, while others exist to pave the roads. The Father has given his children their planetary home, where every object is in its proper place, merely awaiting the worthy effort and word of command to teach the individual the art of serving. If humans were given gunpowder for the release of energy, and if gunpowder continues to be used as an instrument of death against fellow beings, this is added to the debt of the users of the earthly dwelling. For in everything, the Supreme Lord suggests the practice of the good, aiming at the elevation and enrichment of all the values of the universal patrimony. Let us not forget that Jesus was always working as he walked among us. Let us examine the nature of the Master's sacrificial cooperation and learn from him the happiness of faithfully serving. You can begin this very day. A hoe or a cooking pot is an excellent starting point. If you infirm your hands unable to collaborate directly, you can begin, nonetheless, by serving in the moral edification of your brothers and sisters. And with this message, we welcome our friend Marcelo. Welcome, Marcelo. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you very much, Jana. Thank you so much for this invitation. It's a true pleasure to be here, sharing with you guys a few reflections about when a little bit goes a long way. And our topic today lead us to a very important reflection, which is the need for charity, but not the charity simply giving alms, giving money, giving something, which is very important, of course, but it's a different kind of charity. It's a loving action, it's a loving motion that uh, bring us something, bring us the best that we have within. Could you please change the slide, Jenna? So in 2017, when Hurricane Irma was making its way to Florida, most Floridians were getting their homes ready for that very strong storm. So, as it happens every year, stores are crowded with people searching for the essential items. And Ramon Santiago and Pen Breck were at Lowe's hoping to get also a generator. Ramon Santiago arrived first to receive the last one in stock. And when Pam realized she would not be able to get one, she became desperate. Her father, a Korean war vet with a congestive heart failure and a pacemaker, depending on that generator, she was like tremendously desperate. How could she overcome this situation? Pan had driven like 30 miles to be able to get a generator. And she was like buried her face with her hands, and she become like she was crying, she was sobbing in a desperate way. But Ramon Santiago was very close by her noticed that situation. He didn't speak a very good English, but he asked her, "What is wrong with you, ma'am?" And he heard her story, and he was filled with compassion, filled with love. And out of the blue, he mentioned to her, he said to her, "Ma'am, this generator is for you. You can take it. Obviously, you need it much more than I do." For Pam, it was completely surprising. A man she never had met before was touched by her situation and placed that last generator into her cart. That moment was captured by one of the reporters that was like there at Lowe's waiting to capture a few scenes of desperation, just like any news was willing to find some kind of like unusual, so it becomes like media, it becomes new. And they capture that reporter, he captured the embrace by two strangers that hugging each other in a very gentle way. He can be heard, the reporter can be heard softly. Ramon Santiago consoling her. "Everything is okay, ma'am. Everything is fine. Believe in God." And when Lowe's received a new shipment of generators, a couple of days later, they reached out to Ramon and gifted him with a new generator. So stories like these touches us every time we hear or we see something like that. So it shows us that within us there's a seed of compassion, a seed of love that develops, that grows, that gains strength, and it brings us our best and shows to all of us that human race has still a solution. So this is just one case that I am mentioning here for this lecture. This was something that I remember. And yet there are many cases like these, anonymous cases taking place all around the world. But what if we could be the promoters of this kind of love, of this kind of compassion? What if we could change the things we do not appreciate in our world Okay, I know you may say, can one person make a difference? Well, here's when we start to understand that a little bit can go a long way. Perhaps you are increasingly, just like many others, increasingly frustrated with what is making the news these days. And we see constant times senseless violence, crime, abuse of power, polarization, destructions. We see we are going through a transitioning world, and it's complicated. I am certain many of us often become so discouraged that we simply turn off the news, shut off any social media accounts. This is our wish sometimes. And I'm also certain we all agree that our community and the entire world, for that matter, need more kindness. We need more kindness. Perhaps this is why the spirit author Joanna de Angelis stated in the book Jesus in Our Days that the present desperately needs an uncrucified Jesus, a companion, a therapist, offering urgent assistance to keep it from going over the edge. This is literally what she wrote in that specific book. And I can only remember in the Gospel of Matthew, on chapter 5, on the Beatitudes, one of the portions of the Beatitudes, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. What kind of earth we are wishing to inherit? We are not talking about the earth outside, the corporations, the countries, the powerful enterprise. We're talking about inherit this earth, the earth within, because sometimes we have within so much desperation, so much of discouragement. Sometimes we feel like emptiness, dissatisfaction, and we need to conquer again this earth that we call our inness, our spirit, our heart. This is the meekness that we are trying to understand. And this is the meekness that Jesus was talking about. Because outside, it's outside. Sometimes we don't have any control, but we have control of our actions, our feelings, our sentiments. So the current world is in need of understanding of the Beatitudes, developing the meekness within. How can we be gentle if we do not wear out the knots of aggressiveness and the intolerance that we still resides inside of us? How can we display humbleness before the issues of the world if we do not look inside the inner world, becoming aware of what needs to be modified? And that's why Allan Kardec, on question 919, self-knowledge, he asked the spirits, what is the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for resisting the draw of evil? And the spirits simply answer, a sage of antiquity has told you, know thyself. Knowing ourselves. This is something that we need to exercise more and more often. And Kardec keeps asking the question, stating like, well, okay, we comprehend all the wisdom of that Maxine, but the difficulty is precisely in knowing ourselves. But what means can we do so? This is the question that Kardec asked to the spirits, and St. Augustine, the spirit, answering a pretty long answer, But one portion that we know by heart is do what I used to do when I was living on earth. This is the Spirit St. Augustine stating, answering Allan Kardec. At the end of the day, at the end of each day, he, the Spirit, St. Augustine, examined his conscience, reviewing what he had done, and asked himself whether or not he had failed to fulfill some duty, and whether or not anyone might have had reason to complain about him, about the Spirit. And we can ask these questions, making this analysis without the ego of the pride that sometimes takes over the way that we examine ourselves. Let's empty our hearts of the pride, of the selfishness, and make this examination to see exactly what needs to be corrected. When we know ourselves, doing this careful examination, meekness, kindness could be something that was lacking in our actions. The power of kindness and the development of meekness can overcome the darkness we sometimes face. That's why small actions that go a long, long way. It could be maybe smiling to a stranger who feels invisible, unseen. What if that smile is the one factor that contributed towards the decision of that one person not to commit suicide? What if we're doing this and we're simply saving one life? There's so much loneliness in the world, so much pain, and all a person needs sometimes is to believe there is goodness in the world, still goodness in the world. Perhaps this is all about mentoring a child, lending a hand to someone who needs help, or near to someone who's lonely, sharing a positive thought, giving time or money to a cause, or forgiving someone who hurts us. Here is a well-kept secret that I want to tell you. We all have the ability to bring joy and make a difference in the lives of others. That's kindness, and we need more of it. Where there is sadness, joy. I remember St. Francis of Assisi when he asked, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. An instrument of peace. And we can be an instrument of this peace anywhere we are. We don't need to go to Africa to save thousands, millions of hunger. We can do this small actions of kindness in our ambience, in our spirit center, in our community, in our work, in our job. And sometimes that's the difficult things because we envision to save something outside, and the barriers, the obstacles, the proposition that the divine providence is offering us, it's pretty much in front of us. Sometimes it's the ego that plays a tremendous role in our lives. That's why a little more compassion. There's one statement brought by a ex-nun, Karen Armstrong. She's English. And when I heard that, actually it was my wife that brought me this information, and I felt like, oh, this is really interesting. She was stating, the proposition that she was stating is dethroning ourselves from the center of the world and placing someone else there. I saw the message that Janaína read. The Master came not to be served, but to serve. He, despite being the most pure spirit that we can even ever imagine, he was here to give the example, giving the example of serving, the example of love, the example of compassion. Those who make compassion an essential part of their lives find the joy of life. The joy of life. Kindness deepens the spirit and produces reward that cannot be completely explained in words, because this is not a rational experience. It's something emotional. And when we feel this emotion, we connect ourselves with the Creator, with the divine, with our Father, which art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Oh, it is an experience more powerful than words. And according to Robert Fury, he's a psychotherapist from Missouri. This is an article that we read. Kindness is more than a philosophy of the mind. It is a philosophy of the spirit. And many researchers have stated that being kind can make you happier. Interesting statement. Whenever someone engages in the acts of kindness, no matter if it is a big act of kindness or a small, the levels of serotonin increase in both the giver and the receiver that performing this act of kindness. And to make things even more interesting, according to the statement that I read, anyone who witnesses an act of kindness also has an increase of serotonin levels. The giver, the receiver, and those who witnesses the act of kindness experience a boost in happiness. Beautiful. We were created no less for the owner of the universe. God, everything he touches is destined to be perfect. It's destined to be happy. It's destined to shine in a way that we don't understand. That's why reincarnation takes a beautiful role in our existence. It's not only one lifetime. We're going to have several chances to overcome the obstacles. But let's start it today. Don't waste time. Don't push it for the next incarnation. Let's do this right now. Small acts of kindness. Small acts of kindness. A little bit of kindness definitely goes a long way. Jenna, can you change the slide? This is now I'm going to bring a little bit of science, the science of good deeds. And we brought many articles are talking about the same thing. And in this article, we just two pictures of this, the brain, dopamine, serotonin here, these two hormones. And there's something that we wrote here. In the last few years, researchers have looked at the so-called helper's high and its effects on the human body. Scientists are searching to understand just how altruism, the wish to perform good deeds, affects our health, even our longevity. So dopamine and serotonin are brain chemicals. Dopamine and serotonin are chemicals messengers, neurotransmitters that help regulate many bodily functions. And those two hormones, they have a role in sleep and memory, metabolism, well-being, the emotions that we have. And people sometimes refer to dopamine and serotonin as the happy hormones due to the roles they play in regulating mood and emotion. So they are also involved in several mental health conditions, including low mood and also depression. Dopamine and serotonin are involved in similar body process, but they operate kind of differently. imbalances of these chemicals can cause different medical conditions that require, of course, different treatments. And we're going to see, like, so what is exactly dopamine? Dopamine is um, how can I say, my God? It's those hormones. They can play with, they can, the influence that they can make, it's in our body can affect our mood, can affect our sleep, the learning process, the movement, the state of alertness, the blood flow, urine output, and the serotonin also can play like it plays like a big role in the digestion process, the also the cognition and the concentration, hormonal activity, the body temperature, blood clotting, and too many things. I'm not a doctor, and but I like a little bit of science, and I'm not this talk. It's not meant to be like diving into the what is the things about like what the hormones dopamine and serotonin promotes inside of us. But what we are trying to say is when we do good deeds, when we promote small acts of kindness, we trigger certain hormones inside of our brains, and we promote happiness. We promote well-being for the human, for this human spirit. It's beautiful. How can we relate? Doing good actually brings good things for us. The next slide that I wanted to Jana place here, it's a portion on chapter 31 that Emmanuel, the Spirit Emmanuel's channel, psychographed by Chico Xavier, in this book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, brings something that it's worth for us to think about, because we constantly wish to do something huge, immense, marvelous, to end the hunger in countries and doing, of course, this is very important. But as I was mentioning in the beginning of our talk, don't forget to perform small acts of kindness. In the title of this chapter 31 of this book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, brings the littlest things. And Emmanuel, in this message, bring one portion of the Gospel of Luke, when Jesus says, since you cannot even do the littlest things, why are you anxious about the rest? In what Emmanuel brings the explanation for this portion of the Gospel of Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. And Emmanuel brings like, few people know the importance of doing the littlest things well. There are those who, out of a sense of false superiority, look down on simple tasks as if they were dispensable for the success or more impressive works. A learned person must not forget that once upon a time, he or she had to learn the simple letters of the alphabet. Moreover, no one can be completed rightly if the details are not duly considered and understood. In general terms, people are always fascinated by spectacular situations and dramatic or exciting events. However, being prominent demands much prudence. Thorns and stones can also be prominent in the daily pathway. That is why we need to attend to the littlest things on the road that God has reserved for us, so that what we do may be truly useful for our lives. A symphony would not be played properly if one note were missing, nor would a poem make sense if one verse were omitted. Let us mind the littlest things. They are an integral and inalienable part of great accomplishments. Comprehending the importance of this fact, the Master asks us in the Gospel of Luke, since you cannot do even the littlest things, why are you anxious about the rest? That message, I think, set a tone in our ego movement, if I can say that. Maybe it's not the proper expression to be using, but since we are full of pride, we're full of ego, we're very selfish sometimes, and we have this vision of like, I want to make a difference in the world, which is very noble, of course, but you truly want to make a difference in the world? Or you want people to look at you because you are the best since sliced bread, that you want to make a difference in the world? I don't know if it makes sense, this comparison that I'm talking about. And we see people, even in our Spiritist movement, they want to show off. Oh my God, I am the super worker of the Spiritist movement. But we forget to perform small acts of kindness. We forget to do our best in this cell that we call, can we change the slides, Jenna? And we forget to perform something greater in this place, in this first school that God gave us, which we call family. On the Spirit's book, on question 775, Allan Kardec asked, what would be the result for society if family ties were relaxed? A magnification of selfishness. And that's where we can start performing the true meaning of charity according to Jesus. Let's put the next slide, Gemma. The true meaning, where we'll see in question 886, what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? Benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfection of others, and forgiveness for offenses. If we do this thoroughly, maybe we can initiate something outside, maybe transforming the lives of many people, because we are working diligently inside of our home, inside of our family, exercising charity as according to Jesus. Benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfection of others, and forgiveness of the offenses. Love and charity supplement the law of justice, because loving our neighbors is to do them all the good possible, all that we would wish to be done to ourselves. Such is the meaning of Jesus' words. Love one another as brothers and sisters. In charity, according to Jesus, it's not restricted to almsgiving, but embraces all our relations with our fellow human beings, whether in situations below, equal, or superior to our own. So it orders us to be indulgent, because we need indulgence towards ourselves. and it forbids us to humiliate the unfortunate, contrary to what is commonly practiced. And we see in our world something that sometimes put us to shame. When I say like put us to shame, is put human race to shame, because we are all destined to be much better than we are. But thank God we have reincarnation, and we're going to have like many more chances to practice this. But let's be courageous. Courageous not to win the battles outside, but to win the battles within, transforming ourselves. And I can only remember when Paul of Tarsus sent a letter, the first letter to the Corinthians, that small community in Greece, in the beginning of Christian era, talking about this charity and love. The letter was written in Greek, and the word charity, some translations you will find love, but the meaning of the word was the need for agape. Agape is a word in Greek, means love in action, which means charity, love in action, according to Paul. And I would like to, Jana, can you change the slide? And this is a letter addressed to in many ceremonies, many weddings, many ceremonies, or when people like trying to set a tone, to put like a mark stating that love, that charity, that this is what actually needs to be propagated in the world. I can only remember this letter. The need for charity, the need for agape, the need for love, according to Paul. And he says, like, even if I were to speak all the languages of the man and the language of the angels themselves, if I did not have charity, I would be only like a sounding gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I were to have the gift of prophecy and grasp all mysteries, and if I had a perfect knowledge of all things, and if I had all the faith possible to the point of moving mountains, if I did not have charity, I would be nothing. And if I were to distribute my belongings to feed the poor and deliver my body to be burned, if I did not have charity, none of this would be of any use to me. And he brings like this kind of charity that he was talking about. Can you put the next slide, Jania? This type of charity is patient, is kind, it's benevolent. Charity is not envious. It is not rash or hurried. It is not full of pride. It is not scornful. It does not look after its own interest. It does not take offense or become upset by anything. It does not suspect evil. It does not rejoice in injustice, but rejoices in truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. Now, these three virtues remain: faith, hope, and charity. But among them, the most excellent is charity. This was the first letter to the Corinthians, and we can find in many gospels, sometimes they're going to use, instead of charity, they're going to use the word love. But the true word would be charity, because it's the translation of this agape love. This love in action, the love that has indulgence, benevolence towards anyone. Because as he mentioned here, he bears all things. believes in all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. I know this is very difficult to be performing, especially in the stage of evolution that we are. But we're going to have many chances, many lives. We're going to have countless opportunities to be someone that makes a difference in the lives of others. But let not postergate this, not postpone this moment, because if we are incarnate in this moment of transition, in this world that we see outside, full of complication, let us be the change that we wish to see outside. Be the change that you want to see outside. Oh, Marcelo, but it's complicated. I'm trying to be the change, but the world doesn't change. It doesn't matter. You have changed, and you've been courageous to transform what's best in you and transform in someone making a difference and performing with small steps towards this moment of bliss, this perfection that awaits each and every one of us. There's one next slide that I wanted to put. This is something that I would like to recommend. I'm not making any propaganda of any kind of movie, but this is a movie that touched me so much. It's a movie by the name Same Kind of Different as Me. It's a true story. And it brings it's based on an inspiring true story of an international art dealer, Ron Hall, who befriends a homeless man in hopes of saving his struggling marriage to Debbie, a woman whose dreams will lead all three of them on the most remarkable journey of their lives. I'm not going to tell the story. I'm giving you a hint. Maybe it's something that you wishes to see, because I know once you see that story in this movie, maybe the levels of dopamine and serotonin will be triggered inside of you, and you're going to change. Sometimes a movie, a book, a prayer, a hug, something that brings the best that we have within. And maybe we can make a difference, starting with small acts of kindness. I know we can get this. We can achieve this little by little. Janaína asked me to perform the final prayer, the closing prayer of our talk, and I'll be honored. I can only remember, since our talk was talking about this very small acts of kindness without any pretensions to be the best, but simply bringing out the best that we have within, asking the Lord so we can be an instrument of His peace. Help us, Lord. Where there's hatred, help us to be the one to sow love. Where there's injury, help us to be the one to deliver, to give pardon. Where there's doubt, help us to be the one to bring a little bit faith. Where there is despair, hope, darkness, light. Where there is sadness in this world, full of sadness, lacking of compassion, help us to be the one to deliver a little bit of joy. Oh, Divine Master. Oh, dear Jesus. Grant that all of us may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love, because we know that is in giving that we receive, and it is in pardoning our fellow human beings, fellow brothers and sisters, that we are going to be pardoned. It is in dying this old man full of ego, full of envy, full of complication, that we are going to be born again in not new opportunities, waiting for one day. Exchange this position, who always ask for assistance, to be the one assisting you, dear Jesus, in the work of regeneration of this world. Thank you so much. So be it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I was muted. I said that, thank you. And it was a really moving talk. I had tears here, at times, because you talk about something, then the mind goes somewhere, then it comes back, and then, the messages.
Yeah.
So thank you. It was a very, very beautiful. And for the ones who do not know the movie, it's a must see, it's a must watch. So thank you, my friend. And thank you, everyone that joined us. We had, different people from other cities joining us tonight. And we're so happy to have you all. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenna. Thank you very much for this opportunity.